Hi, this is Mashima. Today's seminar is called From AOC Stats Wizard to Match Analysis. Match analysis to improve your win rate. So first of all, my background. I've been a club and high school coach for almost 16 years now. I've got my USA VCAP 2 and GMS certifications. I'm the founder of Rotate 123. We're the makers of Solo Stats. I've taught more than 700 coaches about using stats at USA Volleyball, AVCA, JVA, and AOC seminars, and I'm Art of Coaching Volleyball partner. Let's talk about the AOC Stats Wizard. So the Stats Wizard is a simplified way of taking stats and really helping you improve your team's performance through this methodology. I will talk a little bit about the additional stats required for match play, but let's dive into the AOC Stats Wizard first. The Stats Wizard is a small website that provides key information that you need to figure out how to drive the stats for your team. Now, why are stats important? Well, one of the key things is that if your child were to get a grade from your school, you'd know exactly how they're doing, say, in mathematics, right? So, it'd be a B plus or an A minus, and if they're making progress, they go from, say, a B to B plus to an A minus to an A. And that progression is small, but really important over time. In the same way, stats for your players are really important because you really can't tell the difference visually from a 1.50 passer and a 1.75 passer because you'd have to watch a lot of stats to see the difference. But incremental changes can be measured at practice time, and 0.10 changes in passing over time are a big deal, right? Because you could improve every week and a half. And next thing you know, by mid-season, you're a pretty good passer and you should be in the starting lineup. But you really need those incremental improvements to encourage your players to keep working hard versus, waiting for feedback from you saying, oh, you're doing better. Now, we'll talk about the stats that matter in a second, but let's talk about how to rank your team, because without this, you may be taking too many stats and really focused on the wrong things. So after all these years of looking at statistics, I've tried to reduce this down to like the simplest thing, which is passing error percentage, right? So if you make 10 receives and you miss 2 of those, it's a 20% error rate. And this really tells us a lot about your level of play, because regardless of how well you hit the ball, if you can't pass consistently, you won't be able to engage your offense. So once you've done that calculation by statting your team, then we've distributed this over various levels. The first, of course, the beginner level. And I'm saying that maybe about a 50% or greater error rate. Now you've seen this, right, at 11s and 12s where a server goes back and basically serves, 12 balls in a row. And next thing you know, the game's over and you haven't even been through more than maybe 3 rotations, okay? At the low intermediate level, we're looking at 30 to 50%. Now you're getting better control. Now you can start using rudimentary offenses and start working your team towards more offensive play. At the high intermediate level, 15 to 30% error rate. Right now, you can really run sophisticated systems and begin to look like a more advanced team. And at the advanced level, at 8 to 15%, you can really run full systems. And so you can focus on your offense at this point. Now let's look at the details of what's underneath this. So if we go to the beginner's page, it'll tell us the first thing we need to know, which is what stats do I need to keep track of? And here, it's your serve receive error percentage and your serve error percentage. Okay, it's very simple. Only 2 statistics, and really this is all that matters because you're not going to hit the ball very often, and it's really all about serving consistently and receiving the ball consistently. So as the other suggestion, we talk about how many players should you have, and we're talking about 5 or 6, and this means that the ball is more likely to hit a player versus the other way around because their judgment isn't that good yet. Okay, so more players on the court is a good thing to actually have volleyball happen rather than having ball after ball after ball hit the court. Offensive systems, really simple again, right? 6-6, okay? Everybody sets, everybody does everything, or maybe a 6-3, right? But again, try to keep it as simple as possible so that everybody can learn the various skills, but learning the 2 most important skills, serve and receive. Now we have a whole bunch of drills here, and we've got videos for them. So, it's really helpful to be able to go through this, and we're suggesting specific drills appropriate for your level of play. And, we've created over 40 drill videos that you can pick from and start to work on your team. And also some of these drills have stats associated with it, so it'll tell you how to take stats for those drills. Let's take a look at a little different level. So let's say we go to advanced and see what we get there. And so now really we're talking about taking, all our stats, right? Receive rating, basically all stats, okay? And because you're at that level of sophistication where you want to know what your team's hitting efficiency is, for example, or how well they're digging the ball. And here we're suggesting, typical number of receivers, 3. You might be able to use 2 if you have 2 outstanding passers. And, offensive system, 6-2-5-1, okay? And here again, we have a whole series of drills that we're offering, right, to improve your team's performance. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our slides. Okay, so we've gone through a demo and we've covered, the ranges and looked at, the levels of play and some of the examples. So now let's look about the prioritization of stats. This example here is a high school correlation. And the upper bars talk about positive correlations, and the lower bars are negative correlations. We have 1 million sets of data to do this correlation of win-loss, and it ranges from 12U all the way up to college, right? So each category, is statted, and then you can look by levels, and we'll show you more details in a second here. The order of importance at this level of play is, point scoring, side out, and the skills are kills, aces, receive errors, digs, and attack errors. Now, if this were, say, a 12s group, you'll notice that the kill numbers go way down because there aren't very many, and aces and receive errors are like top priority, which is, we already talked about. You can find the full analysis along this link, and this is on the SoloStats site, and you'll see that, we've divided them up by the various categories. There's a entire presentation here that describes, what we went through and, more detail about how we did our correlation work. And so if you click on one of these, you'll see a series of charts here, okay? And I'll go through this in more detail in 1 second. All right, now let's go to the next section, which is about setting our benchmarks. Now, it's really important to set benchmarks for your play in your region or league, right? Because the variations from location to location is pretty big, and really what you're trying to figure out is how well do you have to play? What stats do you have to match in order to be on the winning side within your league? All right, to do that, you have to stat your matches basically. But there are some other guidelines that we can provide, because we have kind of national benchmarks, and I'll show you what's going on here. And so again, right along this chart, and then we can see that on the next section, right, we can look at the numbers for my team, and I'll show you how this works. If you take stats with SoloStats and you back up to web reports, the tables are automatically drawn and your levels can be shown there, and I'll show it to you in a second. And again, we separate this by gender and levels, either by age level in club or what level are you in school, whether it's high school versus college. And these are national averages across a lot of teams and a lot of matches. And you maybe need to be maybe a little higher or lower depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, if you're trying to play locally and win there, that number for your age bracket might be lower than if you're trying to get to the nationals and, for example, perform really well at the nationals. The key categories that we track are aces, kills, right, receive errors, attack errors, dig errors, side out percentage, and point score. Okay, so here's an example of a chart, and let me actually show you the actual chart in our system so that you can see how that works. Let me back up here for a sec. Right, if we go onto our matches for my team, if you click this performance benchmarks, right, these numbers are automatically generated by looking at the statistics that were captured, and a red bar indicates, where your team stands. So in this case, you can look at what's the distribution look like. So, we're slightly past the average here, 3 aces per set, and 3 aces per set converts to about a 60% win rate. We can, look through this some more. So kills, right? So kills, nice clean bell curve here, and we're to the right of the bell curve, which means we're slightly more than average is about 8. We're at about 11, okay? And 11, we're over 75% win rate, right? So each of these categories, provide you some information about where you need to be from a national averages perspective. And, these numbers may need to be higher or lower depending on what you need to be doing for your particular competitive circumstances. So take a look at these charts and you can follow the links and kind of get an idea for what's required, for your team. Okay, so now let me jump past these. All right, so let's talk about the scrimmage or match stats analysis. We talked about a wizard, and the wizard tells you which stats to collect. My team is somewhere between high, intermediate to advanced. Within this particular tournament, we're playing at an advanced level, so we captured all the stats we need. So serve and receive ratings, attacks, digs, blocks. Okay, so now here's what I call my point tree, which is generated automatically inside of SoloStats 1 through 3 or live while you're taking the stats, or within web reports, which when you back up your statistics to our cloud-based analytics, you'll get these trees as well. This is our SoloStats coach version, which is a mobile version of web reports. And so the way I use this is my assistant takes stats on SoloStats. And those numbers, because he's using his phone, those numbers go right up to our cloud-based web reports. And then it in turn sends the data down to my SoloStats coach app on my phone. And during a match, I can actually watch these numbers come up and see if we're on track or kind of losing it. So the first key thing is to look at the serve and receive battle. And so here you can see we averaged out we won 4 and lost 1 match. So we averaged 189, which is very good. And then our opponents averaged 164. Now you can see this is being generated a lot from the number of aces. We had 38 aces compared to our opponents' 18. Okay, so it gives you an idea of how much pressure we're putting on our opponents by serving. Now, if you don't have your opponent's receive statistics, but you do have your serve statistics, you can do this simple math. Their receive rating equals 4 minus your serve rating, but your serve rating has to exclude serve errors. Okay. Now let's take a deeper look into the one match that we lost, right? We won 1 set and lost 2. And you can see here, the first thing to look at again is the serve receive battle, 164 versus 187. So we clearly lost this, but here's the real big number here, right? 4 aces versus 10. So they scored 10 points right here, right? So this is where the real part of the difference occurred, because if you look at the kill numbers, we did very well. Okay, so we're pretty even offensively. So then the question becomes, what happened? Well, let's look at our serving problem. This is our serve table that shows our 1, 2, 3 serves, and we had 55 attempts in this match, and 15 were 1 serves, which equals a 3 or perfect pass for our opponent. So they had 15 perfect passes. So you can already tell, this is a real problem, and the question becomes, what happened? Now, if we can synchronize our stats to video, then we can actually look and see what is going on so that we're not just guessing, just staring at a bunch of numbers. So in SoloStats video, it's very simple to make this happen by first you shoot your video right during the match, you're taking your stats live, and then when you get home, you upload your video to YouTube, and then you open SoloStats video and you find that YouTube video, bring it in, and then you look for the first touch there that matches the first touch in SoloStats. Once you synchronize those two, you're done, and all the rest of the statistics will come up automatically. So in this case, we're going to use our filter page. We're going to have all our players plus all our rotations, and then none of the touches other than the 1 serve, right? So what you'll see here is that of the 15 serves that were 1 serve, 12 went to the liberos after watching this video. So if we click this particular link, we can see the video. Give me 1 second while we get it running here. All right, so here it comes. Now watch the server on the right, and you see she's kind of disgusted, right? Because she knew that she was supposed to serve to the corner, and the serve fell short and went right to the libero. Now here's a different server, same thing happens, right? Now, the ball got pretty close to that girl in zone 1, but the libero scooted over and took the ball. So here's another server, and this one goes straight to the libero, not even close to hitting the corner. Okay. And then we'll see another serve. Same girl, same spot, different serve, right? Now that one turned out for our favor, but the rest of them really didn't go that well. Okay, now let me close this. All right, so now we understand that particular issue. Let's go to our attack statistics. So this is our attack table. This is from Web Reports. And you can see that we, as a team, hit 203, which is an okay efficiency. Could be a little bit higher. The kill rate, 34.4, that's also not bad, but I'd like to be maybe a little bit higher than that. And then 14.1 for errors, that's pretty good, okay? So were there any specific things? You know, I thought the timing was a little bit off, but this was our first tournament of the season because we've been waiting around for a very long time, being able to only practice in our pod because of COVID. So, you know, this is not a bad first outing. I think the mix of errors were okay. So like 20 went out, 18 in the net, and 14 into the block, right? So that's pretty good. If there were very few going out, then you could say, well, maybe we're not being aggressive enough. So overall, I thought people were aggressive. But the other thing that occurred was a few players had some problems, right? So this player here, 23 and then 42, right, were, you know, just below 0-0, and these two are pretty close to 0, right? And I think a lot of this has to do with timing, actual in-game timing versus practice timing. So I think this will just get better by, you know, playing more tournaments. Let's look at the digging numbers. We're at 73.2% on digs. This is okay, but I would say this is below average. I'd like to be in the 77 to 78%. And again, these numbers I know just from experience and having played in the 16 categories for a number of years. So I think that, again, this is about setting benchmarks and understanding what you need for your league, right? When I looked at the video, I didn't see anything particularly wrong. I saw sort of different kinds of errors going on, and maybe a couple players had specific issues, but in general, it was not that big a deal. Okay, now this was a problem. Blocks, they were either going off the block or through the block, right? So you can see here, we had 12 blocking errors. So now we're gonna try to see what's going on here. And we're gonna click on block and turn everything else off, right? And so if you go to Solostats video, it generates this playlist automatically. And then let me kind of run the video now. All right, so here we go. First one, off the block. Right, next block. Off her hand, so now, you know, this is after a few times, so she's getting kind of frustrated. Now here's one that's really frustrating, right? Looks like it goes on the court, but we get it called out, okay? So important to stuff that ball straight into the court versus close to the sidelines. Here's another one, goes off the hand through the middle of the block. And here's another one coming back. This one goes actually between the hands and ricochets out. Another one, that one right between the hands. And the next one goes to the middle, goes right through her hands, and she's looking at her hands like, what happened? Okay. So you can see pretty decent variety of issues going on here. And so, you know, we need to focus and try to fix this problem. So let me, oops, sorry. Okay. So let's look at the next set of issues. So now we're talking about improvements at practice, right? So let's talk about the serve. We're serving cross court versus serving straight ahead. And part of the reason for doing this was it started, you know, a year or so ago. And I think a lot of the servers, as they were serving tougher, were sailing the ball off the end line when they're trying to serve straight. So we decided to go cross court to provide a little bit more room. This season, the girls have done lots of straight ahead serving because they do a split court doubles, right, where the antenna is in the middle of the net and you have two lanes on each side, basically, and you've got to serve straight ahead to score. And they've been serving very aggressively because we reward extra points for serving aces. And so they've gotten pretty good at that. And because they're all jump serving and they're a little bit taller, I think their angle is better, so the ball is flatter and it can drop down rather than having to go up and then down, which has a risk of sailing off the back. So there's a lot of advantages to this type of serve, right? The first one is it's a shorter distance, which means it's less time for the receiver to react. The next one is that they have to set a platform. So when you serve cross court, if that ball ends up at the midline, the passer can literally, right, take it straight ahead, and have the ball go right to the center of the court without setting any kind of an angle. When you serve down the right or left sidelines, even if you get a midline pass, you do have to tilt, right, to get the ball to the center of the court. And so that little extra tilt can be an error, and that can cause, a shank or something else good for us to happen. And then finally, on the left side, right, when they're in rotation 1, the setter is crossing in front of the outside hitter. In rotation 2, the middle is crossing in front of the receivers, right? And so that side, we want to serve straight ahead into that traffic, right? Serve hard and fast and cause some issues there. And then on the right side, right, in rotation 3, the setter and middle are stacked up and they have to both transition to the middle of the court, which makes them cross across that serve as well. So that sort of motion, we want to have to our advantage. And in addition to that, serving, flat, straight ahead, hard, so the ball's coming in fast, should cause extra pressure. And hopefully we can avoid this, 12 perfect passes to the libero in future matches. All right, so improving the block, one of the things is never assume. And sometimes when you've played a lot of volleyball and your eye work is so much different from the kids, you forget things that they really don't know or understand. So I'm trying to get in a better habit of asking my team about what did you see? And so I asked that question and magically, right? The girl that was getting all those balls off the side of her hand said, "Oh, I'm looking at the ball. I didn't really see the hitter." And it's like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense, okay? So what we've done is we've instituted a drill that requires the blocker, after they jump and they're up in the air, to call where the ball is going. Is it seam, right? Is it angle? Is it line? And move their hands accordingly. So if they see, if they're a pin blocker, right, and they see their opponent turn down the line, then they can, get their hands up and really press that right hand into the court, make sure it doesn't get deflected, off to the outside of the court. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is we're also requiring the backcourt players to make the same call. And in that process, right, they're making a shift, based on that call. And I noticed that as we've done this drill, the defensive timing has gotten better because everybody's moving in the same direction. And so they're anticipating a certain kind of ball and kind of they're ready to go for the next play, which was kind of fun to watch and really took very little time. So we've practiced this about 3 times now, and it's already like markedly different from where we were just at this tournament. Improving the dig. I looked at the videos and really didn't see a pattern. Saw a lot of very different kinds of errors going on, and certain people had some tendencies that they need to fix. But here again, now they're required to call angle, seam, or line and move accordingly. And that's, again, helping the team a lot. The only other thing I saw was that when the opponent is setting a pipe, our wing players were a little bit too high on the court. They were probably at about 15 feet when they should be about 20 because, frankly, the opponent can't hit the ball to 15. There are no, 6-foot+ players jumping, 30 inches and burying the ball. So, they need to be ready for a flatter hit deeper into the court and be able to do that underhand rather than overhand. Improving our attack. I see this as a timing thing, and it seems like now they're in gear enough and the timing has gotten better enough that I think the more we do transition drills and really work on out of system passes to sets, that they will be more prepared. But frankly, the most important thing I think is just a lot more tournament days. Usually by this time of the year, we've already played a massive number of matches, like at least 20 matches. And at this juncture, we're only at 5 matches. So, we're pretty far behind the curve relative to participating in a qualifier and feeling like we're only kind of half prepared or less than half prepared. Okay, so in summary, right, let's start with the AOC stats wizard, right, to determine your level of play, figure out what stats to track, and then have a training plan, right? Then you want to stat your scrimmages and then your matches, And this will help to establish a benchmark, right? How much better do we need to be to start winning more matches, okay? And then you want to review your stats from your matches, starting with serve and receive. Are you winning this battle, right? Because if you can do this consistently, then you'll have great outcomes as the season progresses. Then after that, you want to look at your attack, your digs, and your blocks. And if you can synchronize your stats to video, it's really, really helpful, because seeing the stats is, something that's very different from just looking at a number. For my team, because we've been using SoloStats video for a long time now, they have direct access to it and are able to do their own filtering. And we create journal assignments that'll say something like, when you look at your digging from this tournament, look at your good digs and your not so good digs, and tell us what's going on that's different between those two. And they can look at themselves and, see that, oh, I'm out of position, or I'm swinging my arms, or whatever. But that level of self-coaching, I think, is the first step towards, getting to the next level of IQ as a player, and being able to self-coach and make corrections on the fly. Super important, in match, and certainly during a tournament. And then finally, you want to prepare your practice plans to improve your skill weaknesses. So for each one, as I described in the prior slides, right? Think about what's going on there. What drills can you create that would help focus on that activity? And then can you make those improvements? After this, it's basically rinse and repeat, right? Going to do this again. So our tournament's coming up very quickly here, and we'll look at the stats, and we'll talk to the players during the tournament, after day one, and look at the things that we need to fix, or remind them that these are the things we need to do. And we can continue to make our improvements while we're playing. And no better practice than actually playing. And that's where all the heavy duty learning occurs, because it really doesn't count, how well you practice and play in scrimmages. What matters is, right, in actual match performance, can you get it done, right? Can you close those sets and, win those matches? And if you do that well, then, maybe you'll get a bid to the nationals, or, win your local championships, or whatever the case might be. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can send them to Kyle at rotate123.com. Be happy to answer that. And thanks for listening.